For more than 2 decades, the sail-shaped silhouette of Burj Al Arab, rising 1,053 feet along the Gulf Coast, has stood as an untouchable symbol representing a prosperous Dubai, where luxury is measured by more than 19,000 square feet of 24-karat gold leaf covering the interior. It was a sanctuary completely detached from the chaos of the real world. Yet on the night of the 28th of February, 2026, an incident that authorities tried to describe as physically minor occurred, but its destructive impact on the brand's value was devastating. When drone debris struck the proud exterior of the tower, standing on an artificial island 23 feet above sea level, it did not merely cause a localized fire. It officially ignited the collapse of a long-standing belief. Let's dive deeper into this story together. In the late 1990s, while most of us were still enjoying the reliability of rugged Ford F-150S or placing our trust in the power of General Electric, concern had already begun to grow on a small stretch of sand along the Persian Gulf. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum seemed to understand that the black gold beneath the ground would not last forever. Building a structure on an artificial island roughly 920 feet offshore was not merely an engineering challenge. It could be seen as a declaration of humanity's conquest over nature. Engineers had to drive 230 concrete piles deep into the seabed to secure the foundation of this massive architectural structure. The sail-shaped design of the traditional dough yacht was cleverly integrated with futuristic technology, as if to remind the world that they had a past, but they possessed the future. Have you ever wondered how a standard that stopped at 5 stars could suddenly leap to 7? The story began when many people were likely so overwhelmed during the 1999 grand opening that they blurted out that the traditional 5-star standard simply was not enough. And here is the interesting part. The Jumeirah Group never officially confirmed that title, but they never bothered to correct it either. That strategic silence created a perfect psychological anchor. While luxury hotels in New York or London remained busy competing over room size or the comfort of Simmons mattresses, Burj Al Arab was selling an invisible form of luxury. With estimated construction costs reaching as high as $1 billion, they maintained an enormous staff with a ratio of 6 employees for every guest. You were not merely paying an average of $1,600 to more than $20,000 per night. You were paying for the feeling of belonging to an elite class that the old world had never been able to define. Once inside, the 590-foot-high atrium, filled with vibrant colors, could make anyone feel small. It is said that around 19,267 square feet of 24-karat gold leaf was applied throughout the interior, equivalent to nearly 4 average-sized American homes. To some people, it was pure extravagance, but to the international elite, gold has always symbolized stability. The success of this project seemed to prove one philosophy. If you build something luxurious enough, the entire world, from investors to curious travelers, will naturally find its way to your doorstep. But when a symbol is built more on perception than on tangible value, what happens when cracks begin to appear in that illusion? Can a gold-covered tower still maintain its status when absolute safety, the most expensive commodity of all, begins to waver? At around 9:15 p.m. on the 28th of February 2026, while elite guests were likely sipping expensive wine inside lavish suites, Dubai's air defense system had to register an uninvited guest. A drone was intercepted directly above the Jumeirah coastline. Debris from the device fell and struck the PTFE-coated fiberglass facade of Burj Al Arab. Dubai Civil Defense Forces arrived in less than 6 minutes and extinguished the fire after roughly 45 minutes. Technical reports released afterward attempted to calm public concern by confirming that there was no structural steel damage and no human casualties. But in the world of luxury, no casualties is sometimes only the tip of the iceberg. From a technical perspective, this may have seemed like nothing more than a scratch on the surface. Only around 2% to 3% of the exterior shell was affected, a figure so small it was probably less than the yard space of a villa in Florida. Yet in the age of social media, technical reality does not always carry much value. For a long time, Dubai has marketed itself as the Switzerland of the Middle East, an oasis of absolute safety, where you could remain untouched by geopolitical instability as long as you had enough money. Yet the fact that a drone was able to approach and ignite a fire at what was considered one of the world's most heavily protected fortresses seemed to send a deeply ironic message. Luxury no longer guarantees invulnerability. Before the incident, Burj Al Arab was a symbol of power. After the incident, it seemed to become evidence of vulnerability in the face of modern warfare technology. You may own a diamond-encrusted Rolex or a powerful black card, But apparently neither means much once the sky itself starts falling down. That very night, cancellation rates in the Jumeirah area surged by 40%. Guests paying $20,000 per night likely did not care whether the fire was large or small. They simply did not want their image appearing in news coverage connected to a conflict zone. Real estate investment trusts recorded declines during trading the following morning. It was not panic, but a recalibration. Once a location no longer delivers the feeling of being perfectly insulated from the outside world, the ultra-wealthy people who always have a private jet waiting quietly begin searching for another paradise. After all, the silence of empty rooms at Burj Al Arab was perhaps the clearest confirmation that the security bubble had truly cracked. You know, Dubai is not really just selling hotel rooms. It seems to be selling a parallel world. A place where the issues we normally discuss at the dinner table, inflation, social instability, or border conflicts, appear to disappear behind the tinted glass of chauffeured Cadillac Escalades. Insulation is the ability to maintain a royal lifestyle in the middle of a region where geopolitics constantly boils like a pressure cooker. It is the reassurance of status, where an invisible yet strict security network guarantees that the chaotic outside world has no way of entering. According to some economic reports, the hidden cost of security services embedded in each stay may account for as much as 15–20% of the final bill, not a cheap price to pay for peace and quiet. For Fortune 500 executives and billionaires with private jets, Burj Al Arab functioned as a buffer zone. They paid thousands of dollars per night not to buy sleep, but perhaps to buy the feeling of being untouchable. The base rate of $1,600 per night for the smallest suite, measuring up to 1,820 square feet, operated as a natural filter, a sophisticated financial barrier, ensuring that you would never have to encounter anyone outside your own elite class. Guests trusted that every square inch of this artificial island was protected by advanced radar technology, along with a 6:1 staff-to-guest ratio, making it a perfectly isolated oasis. Yet the events of the 28th of February 2026 proved that even gold-plated fortresses have vulnerabilities. A cheap drone, something you could easily buy at any electronics store for under $500, accomplished what previous financial crises never could. It penetrated one of the world's most tightly secured private spaces. When the drone debris struck the sail-shaped facade, it did not merely cause a fire across roughly 2,500 square feet. It seemed to carry the suffocating breath of Gulf conflict directly into the bedrooms of the ultra-rich. The promise of an insulated oasis officially cracked. Suddenly, the glamorous architecture of glass and steel looked more like a fragile greenhouse than a secure fortress. You can imagine the feeling of a billionaire realizing that the wall separating them from reality was apparently no thicker than a layer of Teflon-coated fabric. Once safety comes into question, the ultra-wealthy people who are extremely sensitive to risk begin asking uncomfortable questions. Is this level of luxury truly worth the trade-off of insecurity? Immediately after the incident, data from global booking systems showed that cancellation rates at 5-star and higher hotels in Dubai reached 40% within just 48 hours. Instead of remaining a safe haven, Burj Al Arab suddenly became the center of attention in exactly the way no guest would ever want. The outcome was probably not difficult to predict. Confidence capital began to shift elsewhere. Wealthy individuals increasingly appeared to be quietly searching for alternatives that felt truly safer, perhaps isolated private islands in the Caribbean or vast ranches in rural America, places still beyond the reach of modern conflicts. Burj Al Arab was considered an untouchable money-printing machine, with occupancy rates consistently holding between 80% and 86%. That is the kind of number any hotel in Manhattan or Beverly Hills could only dream of during peak season. Yet within just 3 weeks after the sale was damaged, that figure reportedly went into freefall, dropping below the 20% threshold. You did not hear that wrong. This may have been the lowest level in the symbol's more than quarter century of operation, surpassing even the shadow of the 2008 financial crisis and the pandemic era. Requests for cancellations and refunds surged by as much as 300% in the very first week. Suites once listed at tens of thousands of dollars suddenly became empty museums, silent in an almost unsettling way. The clearest image reflecting this paralysis could perhaps be found at the hotel's driveway. Burj Al Arab proudly owns one of the world's largest fleets of Rolls-Royce Phantoms, symbols of royal-level hospitality. Now, instead of busily transporting guests carrying American Express Centurion cards from the international airport, dozens of these ultra-luxury vehicles sat motionless in the parking area under the Gulf sun. An oddly ironic scene, like expensive toys abandoned in an empty room. At iconic restaurants such as Al Mahara, where guests once had to reserve tables months in advance just to secure a seat beside the massive aquarium, some of the world's top chefs suddenly had far too much free time. With the ideal service ratio of 6 staff members for every guest, the absence of customers was not merely a revenue issue. It became a massive operational expenditure, OPEX, burden weighing heavily on the management group. When food and beverage, F&B, revenue evaporates by hundreds of thousands of dollars per day, even bottomless pockets begin to feel pain. In the hospitality industry, revenue per available room is the ultimate survival metric. And right now, that metric at Burj Al Arab was likely sitting at red alert levels. What made this especially serious was the timing. This collapse occurred in March, the golden season, when tourists from America and Europe usually flood in to escape the cold, and when major international summits are held. Leaving rooms empty during this period could be equivalent to losing 1/3 of the entire fiscal year's profit. However, if you think guests left simply because they were afraid of fire, you may be underestimating the psychology of the ultra-wealthy. Survey data from luxury travel agencies, such as Virtuoso, suggested a deeper and more sophisticated reason: intrusive security procedures. After the incident, intensified inspections, screenings, and the overwhelming presence of protective measures seemed to transform a paradise vacation into an experience resembling a luxury war zone. People with enormous wealth typically desire privacy and freedom, not aggressive control. As a result, they quietly redirected bookings toward more stable destinations, perhaps a discreet rosewood resort or a private island where safety is felt through silence rather than through the sound of interception radar. When the biggest symbol runs into trouble, its neighbors can hardly sleep peacefully. Makes sense, right? Burj Al Arab is the heart of the Jumeirah tourism cluster, and when that heart misses a beat, nearby resorts such as Madinat Jumeirah and Al Nasim feel the pain as well. Cancellation rates there reportedly surged within days, because elite guests generally do not enjoy having a view of a structure undergoing heightened security reinforcement outside their windows. The consequences even spread to the first-class lounges of Emirates Airline. Guests who once regularly booked first-class tickets now appeared to be reconsidering stopovers at DXB Airport. When luxury lounges, once functioning as hubs, connecting capital flows from west to east, become noticeably emptier, you can clearly see the slowdown of an entire business travel ecosystem that once operated as smoothly as a Rolex watch. Sadly, the incident chose exactly the wrong month to happen. You could call March Dubai's golden month, the period when outdoor temperatures are most comfortable, before the brutal 120 degrees Fahrenheit summer heat arrives. This is when high-net-worth travelers from Europe flock in to escape freezing weather, and when multi-million-dollar horse races and the Art Dubai exhibition take place. The postponement or relocation of these events due to soaring war risk insurance costs wiped out an enormous source of revenue. In business, perhaps nothing is more bitter than losing the harvest season. Empty hotel rooms in March represent losses that no discount campaign in July could ever recover, simply because no one wants to travel to a furnace while security concerns still linger. It seems that capital always knows how to move towards safer places. Once geopolitical risk in the Gulf could no longer be perfectly concealed beneath layers of gold leaf, America's ultra-wealthy appeared to be returning to more traditional values. You can already see an interesting shift. Isolated resorts in Palm Beach, Florida, and private Caribbean islands are reportedly experiencing surging booking growth. Why risk flying halfway around the world when brands such as Street Regis or Ritz-Carlton back home are still serving excellent cocktails in a far more stable environment? Capital from real estate investment trusts. REITs also appeared to be quietly withdrawing from sand oases and moving towards safe havens in Northern Europe or Switzerland, places where the global peace index is more than just a number on paper. This may ultimately become an expensive lesson about dependence on perception. An economy built too heavily on maintaining a flawless illusion becomes extremely vulnerable once that illusion begins to crack. When a symbol like Burj Al Arab can no longer promise absolute safety, perhaps the entire luxury ecosystem must ask itself one question: are they selling real value, or merely selling a glamorous bubble waiting to be punctured by reality? In business, especially at a level where one night stay costs as much as a luxury sedan, people rarely do anything purely for cosmetic reasons. Could it be that Jumeirah Group's announcement to shut down the entire Burj Al Arab for 18 months, expected to last until 2027, is not simply a renovation project? It feels more like a quiet admission that there are cracks even 24-karat gold cannot conceal. You know, luxury hotels usually carry out renovations in phases, so cash flow is not interrupted. Yet shutting down this entire symbol for a year and a half is almost unheard of. Why would they willingly sacrifice hundreds of millions of dollars in direct revenue? Perhaps the level of damage from the recent drone incident went far beyond the minor technical figures officials released. When a money printing machine stops operating, it often means the engine inside has suffered a serious crisis of confidence, something no financial report can fully measure. In media psychology, 18 months is a rather interesting number. It seems to be just enough time for images of smoke and fire on the Teflon glass facade to fade into the blurry memory zones of both Google and ourselves. By halting operations, they appear to be cutting off the flow of negative TripAdvisor reviews about excessive security measures or physical scars that have not yet healed. Jumeirah likely wants people to forget about a hotel attacked by drones and instead wait for a reborn masterpiece in 2027. It is a calculated form of narrative control, transforming a security disaster into a prelude for an even grander comeback. Most likely, this overhaul will involve far more than replacing gold leaf. We may see sophisticated defense systems hidden beneath the luxurious appearance, from military-grade blast-resistant glass to localized drone jamming systems. The product called insulation, which had already been lost, is now being redefined. They seem determined to convince the world that Burj Al Arab is not only the most luxurious place on Earth, but also the safest, a true fortress in the middle of a volatile region. If, after 18 months, this hotel returns and successfully regains its status, it could become a classic case study in crisis management. But you should also ask yourself, is 18 months too long in a world that changes every single day? While Burj Al Arab remains closed, loyal guests accustomed to devoted service may already have found new peace of mind in secluded villas in Greece or discreet Amman resorts. Convincing someone who has grown comfortable with peace and stability to return to a place associated with an incident is usually far more expensive than retaining them in the first place. Experts are also questioning whether the market is willing to wait that long for Dubai. Not to mention the fate of thousands of employees, the people who embody the soul of 7-star service over the next 540 days. That is a workforce management problem, capable of giving even the greatest executive minds a headache. Ultimately, this 8-month shutdown could become a brilliant strategic retreat for a greater comeback, or it could mark the end of an era where spectacle was prioritized above practical safety. What do you think 500 days from now? Will that sail still be strong enough to catch the winds of luxury the way it once did? If you observe closely, you can see a quiet yet decisive shift in the tastes of people controlling major capital flows. Luxury is no longer defined by the amount of gold leaf covering a ceiling, but by peace of mind, absolute reassurance. The trend of quiet luxury is rising rapidly. Instead of loud and glittering cities, capital now seems to be flowing towards secluded resorts, where security is designed to remain invisible, yet effective like a Lockheed Martin system. The question is whether Dubai can transform itself from a city of illusions into a city of substance. To regain the trust of investors and demanding guests, perhaps it needs to learn how to tell the truth more often instead of making glittering promises. Transparency, something historically rare in this region, may be the only real key. Dubai needs to prove it can manage risk at a level comparable to Western nations, where security is built on practical systems rather than light shows and spectacle. Perhaps it is time for Dubai to invest more heavily in less ostentatious models, such as discreet desert ecotourism, where privacy matters more than extravagance. The future of the Burj Al Arab, Sail, and perhaps Dubai itself, now stands at a crossroads. If they successfully integrate top-tier security technologies in a subtle and elegant way, they may establish an entirely new standard called safe luxury. That is exactly what the global elite are craving. On the other hand, if Dubai continues clinging to a model of spectacle at all costs, it risks becoming a museum of the past, a dazzling place to admire from afar, but somewhere nobody actually dares to stay. Reports from McKinsey and BCG all hint at the same reality. Global capital always prioritizes safe havens. This recent incident serves as a cold warning for anyone chasing iconic structures while forgetting the foundation of stability beneath them. What do you think? Will we see a new, more realistic Dubai emerge, or just another layer of gold leaf covering fears that still remain unresolved? In the end, Burj Al Arab still stands tall above the sea as proof of humanity's limitless ambition. Yet, after everything that has happened, we now understand that the story surrounding it has changed forever. That sail is no longer just a symbol of extreme wealth, but also a cold reminder of how fragile empires built on appearances can be. This incident is a costly demonstration that in today's volatile information era, public perception and investor confidence matter even more than structures made of steel and reinforced glass. Once trust begins to crack, even the brightest layers of gold leaf cannot hide the anxieties created by an unstable world. Dubai has shown the world that it can build the impossible, but maintaining those achievements against unconventional risks is an entirely different challenge. After all the noise and the unsettling silence of the upcoming 18-month shutdown, what do you think about the future of this region? Can Dubai truly reinvent a new symbol strong enough to withstand the instability of the modern world? Or is this the beginning of the decline of these mirage oases in the middle of the desert? We would love to hear your thoughts, so do not hesitate to leave a comment below.